We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
The Hong Kong teenager shot by police during anti-government protests on Tuesday is to be charged with rioting and assaulting police.
North Korea says its latest weapons test was a submarine-launched ballistic missile that marked a new phase in its defense capability just days before the resumption of stalled nuclear talks with the U.S.
President Donald Trump unleashes furious attacks on the impeachment inquiry launched against him by Democrats amid an intensifying standoff between the U.S. President and Congress. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. The Hong Kong teenager shot by police during anti-government protests on Tuesday is to be charged with rioting and assaulting police. The Deputy Commissioner of Police Operations also said the officer fired at Chang, the teenager, because he feared for his life. Take a look.
At that juncture, in order to protect his own life and his colleague's life, the officer fired a shot at the assailant and subdued him. The only objective is to shoot to stop the life threats, and it is in line with our guideline and international standards, and that the officers shoot at center marks. The distance between our officers and our assailant is never a concern. It's exactly because the assailant was so close to our officer that the life threat is really imminent. The use of force is undoubtedly lawful and reasonable.
Chang Chi-kun was shot in the chest by a policeman as he and a group of mass protesters attacked officers with umbrellas and poles. The shooting was captured on video that quickly went viral. Chang was taken to a nearby hospital in a critical condition. He miraculously survived the police bullet shot at close range during the street battle on October 1st. He's the first protester to be hit with a live round during 4 months of unrest. Running battles raged for hours across multiple locations as hardcore protesters hurled rocks and petrol bombs. Police responded for the most part with tear gas, rubber bullets, and water cannon. Hong Kong's protests were ignited by a now-scrapped plan to allow extraditions to the mainland. But after Beijing and local leaders took a hard line, they snowballed into a wider movement calling for democratic freedoms and police accountability. The protest movement's main demands are an independent inquiry into police actions, an amnesty for those arrested, and universal suffrage.
North Korea says its latest weapons test was a submarine-launched ballistic missile that marked a new phase in its defense capability just days before the resumption of stalled nuclear talks with the U.S. The test was by far the most provocative since Pyongyang first began a dialogue with Washington in 2018 and marked a significant step in North Korea's nuclear weapons program, analysts said. A proven submarine-based missile capability would take the North's arsenal to a new level, allowing deployment far beyond the Korean peninsula and a second strike capability in the event of an attack on its military bases. The new type ballistic missile was fired in a vertical mode on Wednesday in the waters of Wonsan Bay, the Korean Central News Agency KCNA reported, identifying the weapon as a Pukguskong or Pukguksong 3. The North's leader Kim Jong-un personally supervised recent land-based missile tests. Ankit Panda of the Federation of American Scientists called it Pyongyang's longest-range capable solid-fuel missile, adding Wednesday's launch was unambiguously the first nuclear-capable missile test since November 2017. Tokyo said a part of Wednesday's missile landed in waters within Japan's exclusive economic zone, a 200-kilometer band around Japanese territory. Washington voiced alarm, with a State Department spokesperson calling on Pyongyang to refrain from provocations and remain engaged in substantive and sustained negotiations aimed at bringing stability and denuclearization. North Korea is banned from ballistic missile launches by United Nations Security Council resolutions.
And in Washington, a war of words between President Trump and the Democratic Party. A spokesman for House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, a Democrat from California, acknowledged for the first time that the whistleblower alleging misconduct in the White House had reached out to Schiff's panel before filing a complaint, and that prompted President Trump, in an extraordinary afternoon news conference at the White House, to accuse Mr. Schiff directly of helping write the document. Mr. Schiff had previously claimed in a televised interview that, quote, "We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower." Again, let's listen in.
Get a fresh answer out of each one. The three House committees that are looking into the impeachment inquiry gave notice today that they will be sending a subpoena to the White House for documents and other materials. Will you cooperate with those subpoenas?
Well, I always cooperate. This is a hoax. This is the greatest hoax. This is just a continuation of what's been playing out, John, for the last, since my election, I would say, if you want, and probably we'll find out soon, but probably even before my election. This is a fraudulent crime on the American people, but we'll work together with Shifty Schiff and Pelosi and all of them, and we'll see what happens, because we did absolutely. I had a great call with the president of Ukraine. It was 100%. You have the transcript. And then Schiff went up, and he got, as the chairman of the committee, got up and related a call that didn't take place. He made up the language. Hard to believe. Nobody's ever seen this. I think he had some kind of a mental breakdown. But he went up to the microphone, and he read a statement from the President of the United States as if I were on the call. Because what happened is, when he looked at the sheet, which was an exact transcript of my call, done by very talented people that do this, exact, word for word, he said, wow, he didn't do anything wrong. So he made it up. He went up to a microphone, and in front of the American people and in Congress, he went out and he gave a whole presentation of words that the President of the United States never said. It has to be a criminal act. It has to be. And he should resign. And some people even say it was treason. But it was a very sad thing. Just so you know, the call was perfect, the real call, the call I made. Many people were on the line. I knew that because usually when I speak to foreign country leaders, you can name any one of them, but when I speak on the phone, I know that we have many people listening from various intelligence agencies. My knowledge, I know all about it. And so this isn't something like, oh, gee, I'm on the line, let's talk about a big secret. This is many people on the line. I don't even know how many. We'll find out, I guess. It sounds like it might be a good question. Let me see if I like the question. Go ahead. Maybe for the first time in 3 years, I'll have a good question, and I'll love it.
There is a report that came out just before you and President Niinistö walked out here that the whistleblower met with a staff member of Adam Schiff prior
I love
to
that question.
Being filed.
It shows that Schiff is a fraud.
And
I love that question. Thank you, John.
So can I finish asking it?
Yes, there's nothing to finish.
So the whistleblower, according to this report, met with a member of Adam Schiff's staff. You got it right there. You know it.
I hate to say it's the New York Times. I can't believe they wrote it.
Your response to the
Maybe
fact
they're getting better.
Your response to the fact that that happened and that Schiff may have learned some of what the whistleblower knew prior to the complaint.
Well, I think it's a scandal that he knew before. I go a step further. I think he probably helped write it. Okay? That's what the word is. And I think it's, I give a lot of respect for the New York Times for putting it out. Just happened as I'm walking up here, they handed it to me, and I said to Mike, I said, whoa, that's something, that's big stuff. That's a big story. He knew long before, and he helped write it too.
Meanwhile, U.S. Democrats accusing President Trump of stonewalling an impeachment inquiry threatened to subpoena the White House if it fails to provide documents related to the president's efforts to get Ukraine to probe a political rival. They charge that White House officials and others in the administration have blocked repeated efforts to obtain key documents and other data sought by Democrats as they investigate whether President Trump and those in his inner circle committed wrongdoing. Adam Schiff, the impeachment probe's Democratic point man in the House of Representatives, warned President Trump and the White House to treat the pending subpoena with the utmost gravity. Let's listen in.
Last Thursday, the Intelligence Committee held an open hearing with the Acting Director of National Intelligence. The following day, Chairman Engel issued a subpoena to the State Department in close consultation with myself and Chairman Cummings. We are deeply concerned about Secretary Pompeo's effort now to potentially interfere with witnesses whose testimony is needed before our committee, many of whom are mentioned in the whistleblower complaint. And we want to make it abundantly clear that any effort by the Secretary, by the President, or anyone else to interfere with the Congress's ability to call before it relevant witnesses will be considered as evidence of obstruction of the lawful functions of Congress. And more than that, will allow an adverse inference to be drawn as to the underlying facts. That if they are going to prevent witnesses from coming forward to testify on the allegations in the whistleblower complaint, that will create an adverse inference that those allegations are in fact correct. We are proceeding deliberately, but at the same time, we feel a real sense of urgency here that this work needs to get done, and it needs to get done in a responsible period of time. Just say that we are concerned that the White House will attempt to stonewall our investigation, much as they have stonewalled other committees in the past. It's why I say the White House needs to understand that any action like that, that forces us to litigate or have to consider litigation, will be considered further evidence of obstruction of justice. And of course, that was an article of impeachment against Nixon, the obstruction of the lawful functions of Congress, that is. We will also draw the inference, though, as appropriate, that they are trying to conceal facts that would corroborate the allegations in the whistleblower complaint. So we'll have to decide whether to litigate or how to litigate. We're not fooling around here, though. We don't want this to drag on months and months and months, which appears to be the administration's strategy. So they just need to know that even as they try to undermine our ability to find the facts around the president's effort to coerce a foreign leader to create dirt that he can use against a political opponent, that they will be strengthening the case on obstruction if they behave that way.
The death toll from mass rallies in Iraq against corruption and unemployment rose to 19 on Thursday as the leaderless protest movement spread to virtually all of the South. From Baghdad, the protests have spread to other cities in the country's south, with desperate crowds railing against state corruption, failing public services, and unemployment.
كان واحد وقايد هاي العراق كله. هسه احنا ايش قد هذا شباب، هاي كلها شباب تعيين ما عده يعني يقتل يا اخي، يقتل يلعبهم 20 سنه، يبوق يلعبهم 20 يا اخي. هاي المجال.
Braving live fire, tear gas, and local curfews, Iraqis flooded the streets for a third day in the biggest challenge yet to Prime Minister Adel Abdel Mahdi. The violence followed months of simmering frustrations with President Abdel Mahdi over a perceived lack of progress on corruption, unemployment, or services. Tensions have been exacerbated by a near total internet blackout, the closure of government offices in Baghdad, and calls by fire-banned cleric Muqtada al-Sadr for a general strike. Routine power cuts leave consumers without mains electricity for up to 20 hours a day, and according to the World Bank, youth unemployment runs at around 25% or double the adult rate.
Going now to the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Boris Johnson published his final Brexit proposals, warning EU leaders that Britain will walk out without a deal on October 31st if they don't accept his terms. Let's listen in again.
If Parliament were a laptop, then the screen would be showing, I'm afraid, the pizza wheel of doom. If Parliament, we can do it. And today in Brussels, we are tabling what I believe are constructive and reasonable proposals, which provide a compromise for both sides. We will, under no circumstances, have checks at or near the border in Northern Ireland. We will respect the peace process and the Good Friday Agreement. And by a process of renewable democratic consent by the Executive and the Assembly of Northern Ireland, we will go further and protect the existing regulatory arrangements for farmers and businesses on both sides of the border. And at the same time, we will allow the UK, whole and entire, to withdraw from the EU with control over our own trade policy from the start. Because if we fail to get an agreement because of what is essentially a technical discussion on the exact nature of future customs checks, when that technology is improving the whole time, then let us be in no doubt, conference, of what the alternative is. The alternative is no deal. And that is not an outcome we want. It is not an outcome we seek at all. But let me tell you, my friends, it is an outcome for which we are ready. And that is why we are coming out of the EU on October the 31st, come what may. Conference.
However, officials in Brussels and the UK opponents of Brexit fear economic chaos if Britain ends its 46-year membership of the European Union without a formal divorce agreement. Prime Minister Johnson had earlier warned that this was his final offer, but his complex new solution met an initially cool response from Brussels. A senior MEP said the European Parliament's initial reaction to it was not positive at all.
I can tell you that the first reaction in the Brexit steering group was not positive. Not positive in the sense that we don't think that it is really the safeguard that Ireland needs. Tomorrow we will give point after point the reasons for that, what is not acceptable in the proposal.
The proposal is Britain's suggestion for how to do away with the so-called Irish backstop, which Prime Minister Johnson's predecessor Theresa May agreed to, but which the British Parliament rejected. The backstop agreed by Mrs. May would have kept Britain temporarily aligned to EU customs rules, but it has been rejected by British MPs 3 times. Under the new proposal, Northern Ireland would follow EU regulations and standards for all goods, including food and agricultural products, but would leave the bloc's customs zone to stick with the rest of the UK. But the Commission, which has consistently insisted the backstop is needed to protect both the balance of peace in Northern Ireland and the integrity of the EU single market, still has reservations. Michel Barnier said a no-deal Brexit will never be the choice of the EU, never, and stated this again. Let's listen in.
So my team met the British team today and we received a legal proposal. There is progress, but to be frank, a lot of work still needs to be done to reach and to fulfill the three objectives of the backstop: no border, all-island economy, and protecting the single market. We will continue to work to reach a deal. The no deal will never be the choice of the EU, never. So we will continue to reach a deal and to work with the UK team, but a deal which respect and fulfill the three commitments, the three proposals of the backstop.
Does this proposal look genuine, Mr. Barnier? What do you
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson met his senior ministers on Thursday before setting out on a delicate mission to convince skeptical EU leaders to back his new Brexit plan. Prime Minister Johnson is racing against time and facing headwinds across European capitals as he tries to rally support for a new approach to settling the 3.5-year crisis.
And I welcome the constructive calls I've had over the last 24 hours, including with President Juncker, Chancellor Merkel and Taoiseach Varadkar. And the statement from President Juncker that the Commission will now examine the legal text objectively. Mr. Speaker. So under the proposals in this new protocol, Northern Ireland will be fully part of the UK customs territory, not the EU customs union. But there will be no need for checks or any infrastructure at or near the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Our proposal should now provide the basis for rapid negotiations towards a solution in the short time that remains. I do not for one moment resile from the fact that we have shown great flexibility in the interests of reaching an accommodation with our European friends and achieving the resolution for which we all yearn. If our European neighbours choose not to show a corresponding willingness to reach a deal, then we shall have to leave on October the 31st without an agreement.
Meanwhile, a spokeswoman for the European Commission said it is up to Britain, not Brussels, to address problems the EU sees in the UK's latest Brexit proposal. The British government on Wednesday submitted its proposal for a new withdrawal agreement from the European Union to back up Prime Minister Boris Johnson's vow to pull his country out of the bloc on October 31. While the EU has cautiously said the document contained some progress on the sticking point of Northern Ireland, it also had problems. Those are understood to focus on the reliance on UK goodwill and untested technology to prevent a border springing up anew between the British province and EU member Ireland, and a provision periodically allowing part of the Northern Ireland Assembly to veto the agreement. Johnson's ministers have suggested that, having handed over the Brexit proposal, the ball was now in the EU's court. But the spokeswoman said we would disagree.
As we have said, problematic points in the United Kingdom's proposal, and further work is needed, but that work needs to be done by the United Kingdom and not the other way round. We would remind you that it's the UK leaving the European Union and not the European Union leaving the UK, and we are doing everything in our power to ensure that that exit is on an orderly basis, and we are willing to engage constructively with our counterparts, but we are not going to be the ones left holding the bag, the ball, or any other kind of object.
To other news now, the number of Filipino workers who died after their fishing vessel was hit by a collapsed bridge in Taiwan has climbed to 3. Now this after the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, confirmed that the body of the third victim, earlier reported missing, has been found. The lifeless body of a Filipino fisherman named Romulo Escalicas Jr. was found at 11:28 a.m. Thursday local time, bringing a total of 3 Filipino fishermen dead in the incident, according to Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III in a statement. The 2 other fatalities in the incident were earlier identified as Andre Abregana Serencio and Jorge Hagmis Impang. The government has assured that the families of the victims will be provided assistance, including financial and scholarship benefits. 5 other Filipinos identified as Julio S. Gimawa, Jason Villaruel, Alan Alcanzano, John Vicente Royo, and June B. Flores were injured. Taiwan has a huge fishing industry, and many of those who work in its boats or on its boats are low-paid migrant workers from countries such as the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Taiwan was skirted by a typhoon on Monday night, which brought heavy rains and strong winds to parts of the east coast. But at the time of the bridge collapse, the weather was fine, and the incident is still under investigation.
Alvan Akujinwa, a Nigerian national whose shop was looted during the series of xenophobic attacks in South Africa, says he is still scared weeks after the spate of attacks. Reeling from a terrifying surge of unrest that saw his shop wrecked and plundered, Nigerian-born Alvan toyed with the possibility of leaving his adopted home of South Africa for the first time in 10 years. His mobile phone repair business in downtown Johannesburg was targeted when gangs armed with sticks and machetes attacked businesses in the financial capital last month during deadly xenophobic attacks.
After this xenophobia, let me say, after this xenophobia, ending of last month, we managed to buy all this some stuff to display again, and now we are very, very scared to buy more stuff and put in our shop. We normally have customers to come here to ask, do you have this screen protector? Do you fix phone? Do you do this? We said yes, while we do to them, but now none of them is coming anymore. Everywhere is very, very quiet. Things is very, very shattered. I don't even know what South African is all about to turn, but we are scared. As a human being, it's only a tree that is going to say that I am going to cut you, the tree will stay there. As a human being, I have to make a move for a while.
Akujinwa, 38, was among thousands affected by the violence, which left 10 South Africans and 2 foreigners dead last month. Many of the attacks were directed at Nigerian-owned businesses and properties, sparking sharp exchanges between Africa's 2 superpowers. Johannesburg's crime-ridden business district is crammed with small foreign-owned stores like Akujinwa's, providing everything from household goods, electronic gadgets, and tailored services. Seen as competing with locals for jobs, they are often the first under fire when South Africans' chronic unemployment, inequality, and poverty boils into xenophobic outlash.
For the 6th year in a row, 1,000 people are believed to have drowned in Mediterranean Sea crossings. Take a look. On Tuesday, IOM, the UN Migration Agency, cited a recent spate of shipwrecks along the main migratory routes to Europe, which have contributed to the toll. In one incident off the Moroccan coast at the weekend, as many as 40 migrants are feared drowned. Over the past 6 years, at least 15,000 men, women, and children have lost their lives trying to reach Europe by boat, a situation that the UN agency likened to carnage at sea. According to IOM data, the Deadliest Sea Crossing is the central Mediterranean route from North Africa to Italy, with 659 migrant or refugee lives lost so far this year. Nearly 270 others perished trying to reach Spain from North Africa, while 66 victims were recorded in the waters between Turkey, Syria, and Greece.
Prince Harry recalled the hounding of his late mother Diana to denounce media treatment of his wife Meghan Markle as the couple launched legal action against a British tabloid for invasion of privacy. The couple, currently on tour in southern Africa with their first child Archie, said they were forced to take action against the Mail on Sunday because of the human cost of relentless propaganda. In a stinging attack on British tabloid media, the Duke of Sussex said his wife was being dogged by the press in the same way as his mother Diana, Princess of Wales, was before her death in 1997. My deepest fear in history repeating itself, he said in a statement on Tuesday. I lost my mother and now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful forces. Prince Harry, 35, said the couple were bringing a case related to the contents of private letter which were published unlawfully in an intentionally destructive manner. Meghan's acrimonious relationship with her dad, as well as with other members of her wider family, is a public rift many British people find distasteful, as the commentary in many newspaper articles attests, not to mention social media. It is an affront to so-called traditional family values and neglects the biblical commandment to honor thy father and thy mother. Indeed, in today's Daily Mail, Piers Morgan accuses Meghan and Harry of being heartless in the way they've banished Thomas Markle from their lives. Now, addressing newspaper readers, Prince Harry said the article had purposely misled you by strategically omitting select paragraphs, specific sentences, and even singular words to mask the lies they had perpetuated for over a year. He said, unfortunately, my wife has become one of the latest victims of the British tabloid press that wages campaigns against individuals with no thought to the consequences. A ruthless campaign that has escalated over the past year throughout her pregnancy and while raising our newborn son, said Harry. There is a human cost to this relentless propaganda, specifically when it is knowingly false and malicious, and though we have continued to put on a brave face, as so many of you can relate to, I cannot begin to describe how painful it has been, he added. The claim covers the misuse of private information, infringement of copyright, and breach of the Data Protection Act.
A three-man crew, including an Emirati who became the first Arab to reach the International Space Station, returned to Earth safely on Thursday and were in good shape, according to the Russian space agency Roscosmos. Hazza al-Mansouri of the United Arab Emirates touched down in the Kazakh steppes at 10:59 GMT, along with NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin, who both survived a failed launch to the ISS last year. Hague and Ovchinin completed a 203-day mission aboard the lab, while Mansouri's two crewmates from his September 25 launch, Russia's Oleg Skripochka and NASA's Jessica Meir, are staying on as part of a 6-member team. Although Mansouri's mission was short, 8 days in total, it has been the source of great pride in the UAE, a newcomer to the world of space with ambitions to send an unmanned probe to orbit Mars by 2021. The ISS, a rare example of cooperation between Russia and the West, has been orbiting Earth at about 28,000 kilometers an hour since 1998.
recovery forces have established communications with the crew.
And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
ASEAN in Focus, Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
The European Union on Thursday deplored a wave of fresh anti-EU tariffs by the United States, saying that they would primarily harm U.S. consumers.
The European Union regrets that the United States appears to have taken the decision to impose additional tariffs on EU exports. This is a move that will first and foremost hit US consumers and companies and will make efforts towards a negotiated settlement more complicated.
Hours after getting the green light from the World Trade Organization, Washington moved Wednesday to retaliate against the EU over illegal subsidies for Airbus, announcing tariffs on $7.5 billion worth of European goods starting October 18. The EU will face tariffs of 10% on aircraft and 25% on other goods like cheeses, whiskey, and olive oil, as some industrial products, largely from the 4 countries that support Airbus: France, Germany, Spain, and Britain.
But excuse me, it wins her now because they think I don't like the WTO and they want to make sure I'm happy, because all of those countries were ripping off the United States for many years. They know that I'm wise to it. We've had a lot of wins. This was a $7 billion win, not...
Though the case has been wending its way through the Global Trade Court for years, the final decision adds more fuel to the simmering disputes between the economic powers already at odds over U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum and the perilous threat of taxes on European autos. The EU immediately threatened to respond to any U.S. move with tariffs of its own. However, a U.S. trade official said that would be illegal under WTO rules, and Washington would be prepared to respond. The case began in 2004 over what Washington called massive corporate welfare for Airbus, a direct competitor to U.S. aerospace firm Boeing. It has since been marred in the WTO's complex dispute settlement system, which allows for a range of appeals. But Wednesday's decision, which cannot be appealed, marks the first time the United States has been cleared under international trade law to slap countermeasures on EU products.
Venezuela, the biggest exporter of oil in South America, Thursday announced an ambitious goal of doubling production by 2020 amid an economic crisis and U.S. sanctions. We have a plan to return to 2018 oil production levels of between 1.5 and 1.6 million barrels a day in 2019, according to Venezuela's oil minister Manuel Quevedo at an energy forum in Moscow. Take a look. He said Caracas will target more than 2 million barrels a day in 2020. In August of 2019, its production amounted to 933,000 barrels per day, according to official figures quoted by OPEC, down from more than 2 million in 2017. Venezuela is home to the largest proven oil reserves in the world. The country derives almost all its revenues from oil and plunged into crisis in 2014 during a collapse in crude prices. Caracas is also the target of a large number of U.S. economic sanctions aimed at putting pressure on President Nicolas Maduro, including an oil embargo. Russia is a key international supporter of Venezuela and has made a number of investments in the country through the oil giant Rosneft.
A ban on onion exports by India has caused shortages, soaring prices, and widespread anger in neighboring Bangladesh, where the pungent bulb is used in almost all aspects of the national cuisine. The price of onions is a sensitive subject in South Asia, where shortages can trigger widespread discontent with political ramifications. About two-thirds of the demand for onions, an essential ingredient in Bangladeshi cuisine, is grown locally by farmers, with the rest mostly imported from neighboring India, where heavy monsoon rains have reduced the crop. 1 kilogram of the staple vegetable usually costs 30 taka, or that's 36 US cents, but has soared to up to 130 taka after India imposed the export ban over the weekend. Amid a public outcry, Dhaka quickly took steps to import the vegetable from Myanmar, Turkey, China, and Egypt. Meanwhile, consumers have accused wholesalers of hoarding the vegetable to jack up prices, a charge they deny. Heavy monsoon rains in key onion growing regions have been blamed for the current shortage in India. In an effort to arrest further price rises, New Delhi imposed the export ban, and suppliers and distributors are blocked from stocking up. Some reserve onion stocks held by the national government are also being sold in several states at subsidized prices.
In other news, Vermeer oil painting, a theme park, and even President Trump all received the Lego treatment as thousands of models made the iconic plastic bricks go on show at Finland's largest ever Lego convention. Organizers expected 15,000 enthusiasts to take part in the mass building event this weekend, where participants will rifle through millions of plastic blocks to construct their own part of a Lego megacity. Take a look.
Yleensä mä käytän semmoista sivustoa, missä on tilattu niitä palikoita ja sit odottelee, että ne palikat tulee. Ja sit sitä ennen tietysti se pitää suunnitella. Et kyllä siinä niin menee kuukausi tolkulle. Et olisiko tuossa Titanikissakin, että siinä niin 4 kuukauden aikana niin melkein joka ilta sit jonkun tunnin töiden jälkeen tai jotain teki. Et kyllä se on yleensä aika sellainen pitkäjänteinen projekti, et ei sitä ihan tosta vaan.
Tää on tämmönen viikinkisarja. Ja innoittajana oli tämä televisiosarja, tämä Vikingit, että siltä pohjalta lähdettiin niinku pienestä työstä rakentamaan ja sitten se karkas vähän käsistä. Se on lähtenyt siitä, että me on saanut pienenä, ihan vuoden vanhana itse palikat ja sitten me on niinku vuodesta 67 niinku tavallaan rakentanut tähän päivään. Sitten me on saanut omat lapset innostumaan ja nyt kun pojat on jo isoja, parikymppisiä, niin jopa vanhemman pojan tyttöystävä rakentaa, vaimo rakentaa ja se on niinku semmoinen, että me aina joku idea, kun saadaan kirjoista, peleistä, elokuvista tai mistä, ja sit se vaan lähtee siitä kasvamaan välillä. Ja
That's actually the largest Lego city ever built in Finland, around 1,500 base plates and 1,500 builders, of course.
We'll be back with more news right after this break.
Mga kamag-anak, kaibigan at kababayan po namin sa Middle East and North Africa, masayang balita ang hatid po namin sa inyo. Ang Net25 ay makakasama nyo na sa inyong mga tahanan. Mapapanood nyo na ang inyong mga paboritong programa sa pamamagitan ng OSN, ang pinakamalaking entertainment network sa buong rehiyon. Sa Channel 725, maihahatid na namin sa inyo ang mga pangunahing balita at mahahalagang impormasyon. Kaya makisaya, makisalo tuwing umaga at panoorin ang mga programa ng mga hinahangaang celebrities and OPM artists, same day as the Philippines. You can also watch Net25 live and on demand anytime, anywhere on any mobile device on OSN Play. Kaya tawag na sa OSN to learn more on how to get Net25. Sa Net25 on OSN, siguradong at home ka dito.
A freakish heat wave is making early autumn feel like the dog days of summer in much of the southern and eastern United States, with forecasters predicting that temperatures Wednesday could get close to triple digits. Washington hit 97 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 36 Celsius, late in the afternoon, according to the National Weather Service, surpassing the city's previous monthly record of 96 degrees on October 5, 1941. The October records were due to topple across the country, the NWS said. Temperatures in some places could be as many as 30 degrees higher than normal, the NWS said, while a quarter of the country will reportedly experience temperatures above 90 degrees. It's been so bad this week that some schools in Ohio and Maryland that have no air conditioning are sending children home early or closing altogether. In Tip City, Ohio, teachers gave kids popsicles and held some classes in shady spots outdoors, NBC affiliate WDTN reported. Records were set or tied Tuesday in more than a dozen cities, including Cleveland, Ohio, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Syracuse. New York, the Weather Channel reported Atlanta could break its all-time October record high of 95 degrees Wednesday or Thursday, it added. Relief is expected late in the week as a cold front rushes in, sending temperatures way down. Some in the Northeast could even see the first frost or freeze of the season. America has already experienced extreme weather at the other end of the scale this week as the northern state of Montana was blanketed with record snowfall 4 feet, or that's 1.20 meters in the town of Browning. And at 8 a.m. Wednesday in Billings, Montana's largest town, it was a lowly 34 degrees.
At least 6 people were killed and several others missing after Typhoon Mitag lashed South Korea, with heavy rains and strong winds, according to authorities on Thursday. The storm hit southern parts of the country and on Wednesday night, prompting flood warnings and triggering landslides in affected areas. A woman in her 70s died after she was swept away by strong winds in the southeastern city of Pohang, while another woman was killed after heavy rain caused her house to collapse as she slept, according to the Ministry of the Interior and Safety. A total of 6 people were killed across the country, but the toll was expected to rise, with several people still missing. In the southern port city of Busan, one of the hardest hit areas, around 600 rescue workers were trying to locate 4 people believed to be trapped beneath a landslide. Mitag is the 18th typhoon this year and 7th to hit the Korean peninsula.
Indigenous peoples marched towards Bolivia's Santa Cruz to demand government action against the wildfires hitting the country. Environmental experts said more than 2 million wild animals, including jaguars, pumas, and llamas, have perished in weeks of wildfires that devastated huge swaths of Bolivian forest and grassland. The fires, which have devastated more than 4 million hectares, or that's 10 million acres since August, has completely destroyed the primary forest, extending over 100 hectares in the Tucavaca Reserve in the eastern Santa Cruz department. Environmentalists blame laws enacted under leftist President Evo Morales, who has encouraged burning of forests or forest and pasture land to expand agricultural production. The government attributes the blazes to dry weather and flame fanning winds.
Maybe meat consumption increases cancer and cardiovascular disease, but maybe it doesn't. That is according to Dr. Gordon Guyat, a professor at the McMaster University in Canada. Study after study has found that red meat is associated with poor health for any number of reasons. It may cause cancer. It's also associated with heart disease. And it could even cause diabetes. Now, these findings have led to many guidelines recommending people eat a bit less red meat to improve their health. But now, according to headlines from across the world, all of that has changed. A controversial new study has proven that actually there's no evidence that eating red meat is bad for us and that we can go ahead and gorge on steak and burgers once again. Take a look.
Maybe meat consumption increases cancer and cardiovascular disease, but maybe it doesn't. Furthermore, the evidence available suggests that if it does increase cancer and cardiovascular disease, and it may not, the magnitude of the increase is very small. I would believe that public health guidelines should not neglect completely quality of life and the satisfaction that people get out of eating their red meat. So the population health folks tend, understandably, to focus on lives extended or strokes prevented or cancer prevented, but that's not the only issue. To me, people's quality of life also matters. It seems odd to me to call the accurate and rigorous summarization of the evidence irresponsible. Further, it seems odd to me to say people should be informed and make their individual choices, which we do, irresponsible. To me, comparing red and processed meat and its health effects where we really do not know, and a bike helmet where we really do know, and putting them in and saying that these are the same sort of thing, that is irresponsible. We may be, as we are now, have to say, well, maybe we'll never find out, maybe we'll only have low quality evidence and the uncertainty will remain.
The best thing to do, eat in moderation.
Yep. I agree to that. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. And we're one with 25.